All right, I'm going to call the May 21st DRB meeting to order. First, I'd like to welcome Brian Courier to the board. Welcome. Next is agenda changes. No, none. All right. If everybody can review the minutes of May 7th.
You have a quorum to approve those? No. I didn't watch the video.
I think you don't need a quorum.
We don't need a quorum, right?
Don't need a quorum for that? All right.
For minutes.
You had one change?
So on Lynn and Marie Gardner, it's 927 square feet, and the currently is 903 on the next paragraph down. But when the total comes up to 1,200.
So current should be 903. So it's just
903, and
Yeah.
up here, instead of 300, it should be 297.
okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Yep. That's all I had. I move to approve.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Up next is Matt Giro, appeal of a zoning administrator determination of a stream location. I'm gonna recuse myself, so you're up, Dick.
Okay. So as it mentions, this is continued from February 5th. We had a site visit meeting this evening. And I guess I would open it up to people that were on the site visit if they'd like to.
Actually, it might be good if I may just, I'll just mention that Dick, Brian, John, Ted, as members of the board were at the meeting. We had the appellants that was in attendance at the meeting. We had Matt Giroux, John Little, and Steve Giroux were at the meeting. And in addition, we had Dennis Place, who as a neighbor, and though he's a DRB member, he had recused himself from the hearing.
Yep. Okay. So anybody would like to?
So we saw the beginning of the drainage way up
Did
by
you take your tongue off the word stream?
drainage way. I said, yeah. Well, that's what we're calling it till we decide if it's a stream or not. Up by the horse barn, and we followed it all the way back down to where the property line ends. There was some water flowing in the stream bed. It's grass line for and full of vegetation for probably the first 60-70% of that distance, and then it gets a little more channelized by the this property, by the house in this property. The stream bed did have signs of rock and gravel in the bottom. And it gets a little steeper beyond this property, and flows all the way down to. We saw a number of drainage tiles and foundation drains that feed into this. So add water along the way to this property. Anything else?
Yeah, I think I concur with what Ted visibly observed. The difficulty is that this is a manufactured swale. It is the low point of the ground, and there would be surface water on it, but it's been enhanced. It's been manipulated appropriately and legally to encourage additional flows there. And there has been erosion over time, and I have a hard time struggling with defining erosion due to a manufactured swale to equal a stream definition as I can understand the intent of our definition. So it's clearly where the gradients start to become more pronounced at the border of the clearing, and where the woods start to be present. That seems more in keeping with what would be a stream definition, because that was less manufactured, but throughout the vicinity of where that 75-foot threshold was for the house and where all the fields were, to me, it's consistent with a swale that has seen some erosion.
It would probably be, from a water quality perspective, it would probably be better if it was less of a channel and more of a grass-lined swale. I may not go with the elevations of some of those, especially the house drain from this property, but it seems like some of the erosion could be undone. It would be to the benefit of water quality.
Yeah.
And to my mind, that might be a way of. It's hard with our definition which is visible stream bed of exposed rock, gravel, or other sediment, where it's been channelized. Where it's been channelized is due to activity here and above it, and it would be better if it was more in its natural state, which was just a low drain swale across the field, especially where it starts to get channelized by this property. I don't know if that's possible or not to reestablish. That would certainly make it easy for me to find that it wasn't a stream if that was reestablished as more of a swale.
So one thing for me, and I don't know that it's in our definition, but one thing I notice is that, near as we can tell, it's not spring-fed. There's no tributaries that feed into it other than drainage tiles from just drying out pasture land nearby. To me, that's kind of another definition of a established stream, as something that's got something feeding into it. I know our rules say that it doesn't have to flow year-round, but it seems to me a stream should, if it's a stream, it should be flowing most of the year round at any rate. So I too struggle with, this was clearly at its start just a swale. Maybe a natural swale that was maybe not channelized, but defined a little more sharply. As Ted noted toward the end, where I'm guessing more sources have come into it and maybe the water is a little faster, even though what I observed was not terribly fast water flow at this point. That has led to some of the erosion. I asked at the meeting, or at the site visit, about the erosion, and it was my understanding that, you're looking at, it hasn't been touched in, 30 years or something like that. So it's not like it's been modified. It's just 30, 40 years of water flowing down through it that's caused that. So I guess in my mind that a farmer's swale doesn't constitute the start of a stream. It seems like you need to have something more of a consistent water source in my mind, and I know that's not part of our description. I'm not entirely sure our description is complete enough. It seems like you could also argue that any roadside ditch meets these standards.
And that's what our standards this map that we have in front of us. And to me, there's that's why I think we have to think of what is the spirit of our regulation, because as from the field visit, if we follow that blue line, which is the drainage way that we're discussing right now, you can see how far up into the field it goes. And I would I have a very, very hard time understanding how this map was created with that blue line extending as far as it did. So it challenges the accuracy of this map to me, and so that's where I'm going back and reflecting. All right, what is the intent? What is the data source? What are we seeing? And I think personally, I'm on the side that this is an agricultural use, that the fields were manipulated to encourage drainage to be consolidated, and I think it's unfortunate that we're having water quality issues that are probably apparent, and we also just experienced a heck of a storm, which probably exacerbated the conditions that we saw from the visible integrity of the drainage way.
After going to the site visit, I would agree that this is certainly pushing any definition of a stream. It's more of a swell, I agree. I wouldn't call it a stream.
So I had a similar question about the mapping of this, and then maybe, Mitch, maybe you can help us. Is this a state? How is that determined? Did somebody walk up the tributaries and determine where they felt a stream started? Is it done aerially? Is it done topologically?
I think it's a combination of a lot of those. And I think they probably established that streams, it could have been in part aerially, but I believe they also, in the past, they did have people who did walk it and take their best guesstimate on it. The maps that we have here, the information is from the state.
What bothers me is that today they could go out, the owners of the property could go out there and just change the direction of those drainage pipes and alter that map. And that's what affects this integrity of that resource of this map to me.
And in part, that's why we have the process that
Yeah.
we have here. A zoning administrator can go out, and if it's not basically to, if the landowner disagrees with it, it can come to this board, and you could have multiple people take a look at it and come up with a shared opinion.
So how much of this, so we've got our regs that define, and I know our zoning administrator went precisely by those regs, and in her opinion, it seems to be a stream based on the definition. Is this one of the situations where the board can apply common sense, for a better word, or are we being asked to find that this meets the words in the rules, or are we allowed to look at it from a viewpoint that it may meet the words in the rules, but there are extenuating circumstances to us?
The challenge to that, and I mean, whenever you have a regulation, the regulation itself is kind of, here's how we're going to determine it. When you start saying, well, it kind of meets it and not, then the idea is try not to be subjective and where you can keep some type of consistency to it. But that said, this has come back to a group consensus. And the idea of a group consensus is, well, you could rule, it sort of does, but it really sort of doesn't for these reasons. So really it is open to the board's interpretation on all those different things.
Well, basically from a lawyerly perspective, without having seen the site, and I'm not going to participate in this decision, if the language of the regulation is clear, then you should apply the language, not finding common sense exceptions to it. But how often is the language of the regulation or the statute or the Constitution so clear that it's not subject to interpretation? So you have to make a decision as to whether the regulation is very clear. If it's clear, you should apply it as it's written. That's
So
the canon of statutory construction.
Wasn't there
thank you.
testimony from the previous meeting from one of the state regulators went out and looked at it and they deemed it was not a stream?
No, that's not what he didn't say it was in the stream, it was just not under the Vermont, their jurisdiction. It was still under, he still was agreeing that it was under our jurisdiction.
Okay.
Vermont Rivers Program, it's in the, yeah. His opinion is in the, that January 14th memo for us. So he's saying work conducted on or near this drainage is not subject to regulation by Vermont's stream alteration general permit. In other words, it's okay what they've done, making it, consolidating it, and you don't need permits to go in there and do something else different to it. Because in there, it doesn't fall under state jurisdiction for stream. For a definition of a stream that needs an alteration permit if you work on it, if you change it. So my suggestion is that in order to get beyond the visible stream bed with exposed rock, gravel, or other sediment, and where it's channelized by this property, I tend to agree that it has that, but the state said you can change that, and so I think without a stream alteration permit, and I think it would be better for both water quality and for you being able to build your deck, is to kind of unchannelize that. I think you have to get some guidance from an engineer on how to do that properly, not just fill it in with rocks or whatever. But I think that would be a way of making it so you get better water quality and they get to build their deck. That'll be my suggestion.
That's an interesting, can we order that as a condition of this?
I think
Or is that more of a, we deny and,
right.
Not the condition.
Right, you're supposed to either.
approve or deny?
Or you're supposed to either agree with the zoning administrator's finding or.
And that's, I struggle with going against staff determination, and I agree with Ted, as I've iterated earlier, that there was quote unquote exposed rock and gravel, and I stood on a bit of ledge, and it can't get any deeper than that, and so it's going to continue to erode around the edges of that stream bed, and so it appears that that following the letter of the law is that is the way our regulation is written. However, I find it extremely difficult to apply because it's clearly the result of years of adequate farming and appropriate manipulation of that land. So, but I do agree that Administrator Suzanne and Ted is right, that we do see exposed rock and gravel.
Another way to look at this, if you define it however you wish, what's another way to help mitigate putting in an expansion there that won't really cause any further detriment to the waterway?
Well, there's people out there that can tell that we probably don't know the answer to that, but there are people out there that do. You know what I mean? Hydrogeologist or I don't know. Engineer, just a civil engineer knows how to unchannelize, if you will. I think it's what we do on town roads when you get a channelization is we rip-wrap it, which slows the water down and keeps keeps you from pulling all the sediment, down At least that's what we've been doing on the hills up there. And it's been funded by the Lake Champlain Basin, I think, money to improve water quality in the whole area. So there are some obvious things that, I don't think cost a fortune to implement that would convince me that it's no longer a channelized, meeting that.
I guess I was thinking more specifically, is there a way to design the deck so it doesn't interfere with,
Well, the thing is, the setback,
Yeah.
the regulations as far as
I don't
setbacks.
think the deck's gonna add much, or if anything, to this at all. I think it's strictly there's a 75-foot setback and,
It's an aerial encroachment, not a
Right.
physical encroachment.
right,
Not an increase in impervious
Right.
surface.
right.
And then it was pointed out in the last meeting, February meeting, was that they could put an at-grade deck on the ground,
Yeah,
tiles,
yeah,
which would be way worse.
yeah. Well,
and-
and
and that could
I
go
don't think it'd be
in the-
way worse either, given the topography and the grass, that goes on, and the lawn treatment that it gets on the way down.
But,
But,
I mean,
yeah,
they
you're
could
right.
build it like right to the stream.
Yeah, I suppose, I don't know.
And that's what I mean by that could be worse. That's if you could eliminate the grass strip.
Yeah.
is
A
it
deck's not gonna do
possible
that.
to just grant a variance
No,
for this particular case?
So that would
That's
be,
not the
that would be a
application.
different hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
they'd have to come in for a
And
request.
I think actually even that would be a real challenge to really, but that's a different story altogether. You're basically here, there's a definition for a stream. And
So while, so for me, the mapping seems to be, I challenge the quality of the mapping, but the quote-unquote water course with a visible rock or gravel, that's pretty hard to argue with, unfortunately.
So can I ask why a town ditch? Other than that it's not showing up on the map as a map stream, why would you not include a town ditch as a stream based on that definition?
I just think it's looked upon as something a little different, but I don't really have a very good answer on that.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have every roadway
Well,
in
understood,
town
which
on
means
both sides of the road, right?
we have to take the roads away.
Mhm.
And the other thing that as we were looking into this, that I didn't realize that I thought different size streams had different. I didn't realize everything was 75 feet.
Actually, that's
so-
not true. Much of the town is 75 feet, but in the village area, we have separate village stream setbacks in the village area that are a lot smaller.
Right along the canal.
That was one
It's
example.
much smaller, and the canal's a much bigger and an honest to good stream. So
it's a canal.
it's a canal. Water's flowing virtually all the
And
time.
actually, you have a number of different other streams that cut through the village area, which only have a 25-foot setback. Although, even though it's only a 25-foot setback, where a 75-foot setback, you can still put, in the non-village areas, you can actually put a driveway and some other particular things. You can't put any structures in it. In the village area, the smallest setbacks, you can't put anything. You can't put anything that doesn't already exist that's actually in there.
So it seems to me not something that this particular application has anything to do with, but when we're talking about what regs can modify, it seems to me taking into account the width of a stream with its buffer seems to me would be prudent as well, that when you have these small tributaries leading into a larger stream, that whole thing taking up 75 feet seems silly in my mind anyway. And a 25-foot setback would probably solve this problem if that's what we had instead of 75. So at any rate, just
That's a thing that's a comment for the planning commission.
One size fits all.
put it on your list for suggestions that might be something to be looked into.
I did notice Dennis here on my way in.
So
You notice me here?
So there were some
Suggestions to the planning commission.
Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
that's true.
Oh, yes.
So there was some a question from the public if the boards had their say. Right, I'd like to open it to the public. Please state your name.
Dennis, please.
Very good.
So you guys have jurisdiction to take this off the map, right? The town?
The zoning administrator actually has the authority, if she felt that that was not a stream, to deem it not a stream,
Okay.
and, or deem it a stream, and that could be appealed, and that's why we're here.
Okay. I mean, if I was on the board, I would definitely take the common sense approach, like you guys were talking. It's definitely a swale. I've lived there for 50 years. Ted had a great point that you could put a French drain in there, to take care of all this, you know, the erosion. It'd be better water quality. I mean, that's what it was a drain for all these houses, even the house farther up. Just over time, it's eroded the ground. And I'd like to see it filled in, because I've almost tipped a tractor over in it once, so. But, I mean, if anything, it's more of a stream bed where it starts on my property, where it's steeper.
That's true.
You know, where past their property line where it starts getting real steep. I mean, if you wanted to call that a stream, that's what I would call a stream, but, I mean, I still don't even call that a stream, but.
Okay. Any other comments from the public?
John Little. So when we first came to the board 5 years ago to do the subdivision, we had met with Peter Erb and we went over building envelopes and trying to figure out how we could put a house on this property. And originally we wanted to put the house in the hayfield, and Peter Erb said, no, like that's prime agro land, you shouldn't put it there, you really should put it back in this corner area of the lot. And so we kind of shrunk down our building envelope just to that one spot. And then we asked him about, because we saw on the planning that was the setback was 75, and we said, oh, that's a drainage ditch. And he said, well, there's no way you can fight that or change that. And so we kind of left it that way. And then it meant that when we were building our house that we had to blast ledge, and I feel like we've gone through a lot of hoops to try to make it best for everyone involved, but still might get financially feasible for us to do things on the land, without undue burden to completely change drainage that's been there for 30 years, and is working fine as far as the horse pastures go. But I guess that's where I'm at.
So I'm kind of not sure exactly what we take a vote at this point.
So, I'll make a motion that says that we uphold the zoning administrator's finding, but that given the state's statement that it does not need permits in order to work in that area, that it's under the applicant's control to, in my mind, turn this into not a stream by unchannelizing it. And it'll be better for water quality as well.
Which means the zoning administrator is back making another assessment after that work's done.
Yep.
And if it's a French drain, it's going to be gravel or something like that. And now you're going to have
Well, if it's a French drain, the water won't be the water will be underground, actually. So.
True, all right.
So.
But would that still be defined as a stream?
It doesn't,
not
not by that definition.
Not in my mind, right.
It's not a visible stream.
If it has water or not water are the
Right, it cannot have water, it
So
doesn't say
then,
it has to have
if
water.
it has stone in it,
Yeah,
But it's not a visible stream bed.
Right.
but
It's a
it
hidden
could
stream bed.
still be.
I would think the zoning administrator would have a hard time not finding it.
I would have an easier time proving that.
Right, exactly. That would be, I'm signaling if it comes back to us, how I would vote if it was not a visible stream bed. And I think water quality would be improved and,
There may be other better options to do what you're saying. Just a reminder, a number of months ago, we had an application from this board that modified, it was work in a fluvial erosion hazard by the town garage,
yeah,
which you had a professional who was an expert in this type of reclamation, who was able to do work in there to create less erosion and so forth, that such an expert might be able to help you in a way which this board probably can't, as far as that type of direction. But it almost seems like we're kind of going off in a different direction than
Actually, I think procedurally, we have to make a motion to uphold, no, we have to make a motion to approve the appeal. Which means,
approve or disapprove.
Or deny the appeal, right.
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
And so Ted basically made a motion to deny
Right.
the
Do you want to
appeal.
amend your motion? Do you?
No. I'll change the beginning of it to say a motion to deny the appeal. The rest of it is commentary.
so I would suggest a member who is going to participate, and I'm not, make a motion to uphold the appeal.
Are you upholding the appeal?
We would be seconding Ted's motion.
No,
right?
we would be, the motion is to grant the appeal, grant the applicant's request for relief.
No.
That's the way our
We're not doing-
that's the way our regulations are written. We should
Right.
make motions in the affirmative in favor of the applicant.
I've lost you, Greg.
And then if you were opposed to that, you would just vote.
Because
No.
there have to be 4 members, a majority to overturn the zoning administrator's decision.
Right.
So procedurally, that's the way it works. There has to be 4 members.
Motion again? You have them.
So you want me to make a motion and then vote against it? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you could
That's
do
right.
that, or somebody who may be more emotionally attached to it could make the motion themselves.
Well, can't you just, you can't go to appeal? or-
Technically, under our
or
rules, we're
deny?
supposed to be making a motion in the affirmative that get voted up or down.
Well, when we deny
Because
something,
the appeal is, the applicant is appealing, and we have to say whether the applicant is, the appeal is going to be granted or not. It's not whether the zoning administrator's decision is going to be affirmed or not.
so I would move to deny the appeal? Can I do that?
No.
Technically not. Dick, why don't you make a motion to uphold the appeal? That is, to reverse the zoning administrator's decision.
And then we'll vote, okay.
All right. So I will make a motion to uphold the appeal.
To overturn the zoning administrator's decision
Yeah, okay.
and to determine that the water course in issue is not a stream within the meaning of the regulations.
You don't necessarily have to do it that way. I think if there is a consensus, the board could vote. Even in the negative, they could actually, if there is 4 people who want to make a vote if they're in agreement that they want to deny the appeal, We did the same thing with Hannaford where it
Oh,
was.
we're gonna issue a written decision,
Yes, we are.
so maybe we're going to struggle with or you guys are gonna have to struggle with the grounds, but I guess everybody should get at first on the page as to whether the appeal is gonna be granted or denied.
Didn't you deny Sam Evanson's appeal of my decision? You
That is
didn't
correct.
You didn't
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah, but we issued a written decision.
We
Yes.
this is just simply to know what that decision, and usually then, I mean, because there's also another option too. If the board wanted to, it could close the hearing and go into deliberative session as well,
I
if
think
it
that's
chose.
another
Another
point
option.
was, our decision was to deny the appeal,
Right, and that,
which is opposite of what Greg's saying. It should
Right.
have been a positive decision that we voted against.
what would the board like to do?
So can I make a motion that I would be in favor of the appeal?
Yes, you may.
That I feel we should be able to move forward with.
So I second that motion.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got a motion
So,
in the positive.
Yep.
I should say, supporting the appellant's overturning the zoning administrator's decision.
so this is where I'm confused. So we have a motion, we have a second, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're
John could
voting
change-
affirmative.
That's correct. It's just a second on the
Just a
motion.
second on the motion. You don't even agree with it, though.
I don't know
All
if
right,
it
all right.
triggered it.
So
I think I've told you
no,
how.
it's being brought for vote. Okay, and then we say, all those in favor.
You need for a majority of the total board to approve John's motion.
Okay, so we're voting in favor of upholding the appeal.
That's correct.
If you vote
Yes.
affirmative or whatever.
No, if you vote in
Oh.
the affirmative, it's not a stream. If you vote in the negative, you're saying it is a stream.
Right.
Okay. So by the way, I guess we need to close the public hearing. We're talking about this.
Technicalities.
So I withdrew my motion, by the way, so.
And I'm abstaining from this vote.
Oh, yes, any further discussion, I hate to even ask that. But I guess not, so all those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to say aye.
And all those
Did you say,
against?
did you say all those opposed?
Oh, okay, all those opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
All right,
So the measure did not pass.
Right.
correct.
So for
Right.
whatever it's worth, I don't know, can we make a motion that there's an investigation of the state water, the GIS mapping? Is that an appropriate motion at this point?
Well, the GIS mapping can be an error, and I think there are definitely, I think there might be something very well to be said that blue line definitely should not go as far up as it does. I think there's agreement on that, but the area in question, I think you've just made a decision on.
Yep. And then,
And there will be a written decision. The board has 45 days to approve a written decision.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, that was confusing.
and I trust the applicant heard Ted's
Yeah, hopefully.
Commentary.
Yeah, hopefully that there's a solution out there.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
And on that, I'll turn it back over to Dennis.
All right, up next is Claudette Pereiro.
Thanks.
Conditional use application for a home occupation bakery. How you doing?
Hi, how you guys doing?
So, let's see here.
Just
Welcome to
explain to the
Colorado.
board, just basically give an explanation of what it is that you're proposing.
Well, my plan was to start cooking from home and start doing deliveries. Because last year I worked at Frost Brewing and I was not thinking of doing it this year. but we decided to go back to Frost and be there the whole summer. So I'm not gonna be doing it at home, but Mish explained to me that since I already went through the whole process of having you guys here, then I can come and talk to you guys and maybe have the license, so maybe next year I can start doing that. My plan was to start using Uber, but Uber is not doing the service that I want, it's only on the Burlington area. So they're not coming to Hinesburg to pick up food, not yet, maybe next year and 2 years from now. So that was just my plan. That was.
So you were gonna, it's in hypothetical, you were gonna say the Uber Eats service and having
Right.
it go to your house to pick up the food and then deliver it?
Right,
Mm-hmm.
And you're gonna cook the food in the truck.
yes, we have a commercial kitchen in the truck. Which we are licensed by the state.
Okay.
And
Well, it certainly meets the size constraints for for a outbuilding accessory structure, right? I didn't have a problem calling the food truck an accessory structure for from a.
well, it's a trailer.
Yeah, okay, so it's not a truck, it's a trailer. Okay. Yeah.
If this application was done inside the house, it would have been a zoning administrator's, it would have been approvable by the zoning administrator.
Uh-huh.
The only reason why it required a conditional use approval for a home occupation is that it is being done outside. And then some nice things about the locations that are shown, they're pretty, there's a lot of vegetation that around those places that's pretty isolated. There is good access onto the property. So if 2 or 3 vehicles a day were to come by to pick up vehicles, even a very small delivery truck could get into the property and do a little bit of a turnaround.
So the lane is 12 feet, 14 feet? Eh.
It's still a driveway. It's probably 12 to 14 feet.
Just serves one house,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Right,
only
so I
thing
mean,
is
that's one
that
thing
in
I saw. It's
in
off
the-
of Pond Road, it's not off of a shared, driveway or something like that, so
Right,
it's, and Pond Road
and,
clearly has plenty of traffic.
Right, and in the area that's like right in here, you could, I mean, when I
The
came to look
Hammerhead,
at the
right?
site, I was my car is obviously a bit small than a delivery truck, but there was plenty of room to maneuver over there.
So the one halfway down, that's still pretty secluded? I mean, from the picture, it looks kind of open.
It is pretty secluded. I think I took some pictures from there.
There's been no comments from the neighbors?
Actually, there was one particular comment from Barbara Fourier, which is in your packet. And simply put, she is very much in support of, Barbara lives, and let me just go back to the map. Her property is, I believe it's the one that is behind you, remember right? It's like the one over here. That's where she lives. And
Oh, that's over
she
here.
just,
said, cut the trees down so I can smell the bread, right?
Deliver cupcakes, we're good to go. So when you're cooking in the trailer, does it need electric and water hookup to a source, or is it all self-contained
It's all
propane?
self-contained. We use a Honda generator, which is no noise.
Okay.
You cannot hear it. That's the same one we use at Frost, so nobody can hear it.
Okay.
From personal experience at the Frost location, pretty minimal impact on the adjacent outside.
Board members have any other questions?
Maybe the public.
Nobody here from the public?
Apparently,
So is this permit then indefinite, even though not going to use it.
It's
for the
not
time being.
transferable, but
It's, yes, she can have it for years and use it when she wants. The property gets sold and moves away. So does a home occupation, typical of all home occupations.
right. And if she moves from this property to another property, it's also, it doesn't
Right.
come with her when she moves to another property.
Correct.
Right.
If she were to move to another property and want to reestablish it, she'd have to come back here.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
I would move to close the public hearing and direct staff to draft conditions of approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Hope to see you at Frost this summer.
Yes, and the board has up to 45 days to issue a written decision, but usually it's done at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks. Move to other business?
Basically, the only thing I have to mention is just the scheduling that we have. Next, in 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in the upstairs hall for Hinesburg Center 2.
Brett?
For Brett, yep.
This is a sketch plan again.
This is a new sketch plan.
It's a brand new sketch plan, or is it a modification of a sketch plan? Is it, or is that this, is there a difference?
Well, how much, does he have water for all of this that he's proposing?
He's going to break it apart into 2 phases. And without saying so much, he's going to provide a new master plan and a phase 1, phase 2. And he felt it was different enough that he'd rather
And we're not off camera, right?
Yes,
No, we're on camera.
We're on camera.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, we're not off camera, okay.
Right, and
bite
everything
my
we would,
tongue.
of course, say would be, of course, proper, so yes, we're on
But
camera.
the sequence now is sketch plan.
Preliminary final.
But then you get, it's after sketch that you get to apply for water and sewer. Is that the way that works?
Correct, but he's, basically, they are going to have a significant amount of information where they could come back fairly quickly with the preliminary.
Okay.
Once they have, they didn't want to have a situation where the board deemed what was being proposed now was too different from what was proposed then.
Yep.
So in order not to have any type of concern on that, they're coming back for a sketch plan, and they plan on, assuming they get an approval for a sketch plan, to come back soon afterwards for their preliminary application.
And septic, is that an issue for this application?
Sure.
It's all on municipal water and
Sewer allocation.
Right.
Yeah, no, I know, but how are we doing? We haven't heard anything in the last couple of years on the expansion of the wastewater treatment facility.
Right, they have allocation, well, actually, and this is kind of true with some of the other developments as well, a lot of work has been done over the last number of years to fix the system. There were a lot of leaks that were in the system, and by fixing numerous leaks, the capacity of the system increased.
So this was leaks into the system, water getting into the system?
Well, getting out of the system,
That's
coming
the
out of the system.
water.
Losing lots of
But there's
water.
still discharge into Lake Champlain issues that I thought the state was putting a hold on
That's
us
the
on.
wastewater, and there's
That's
still enough.
That's what it's
wa-
talking about.
That's what he's talking about.
Okay. There is going to be at some point a need to upgrade when they reach a certain amount of use, but it's coming, but it hasn't reached that point yet. And this, what they're proposing, the allocations that are being approved have that in mind.
So the phasing that he's proposing, he has allocations for?
The first phase that he is proposing, he will have allocations for, both water and sewer.
Okay.
Because he already had a sketch plan.
Yes, he received it after getting that sketch plan, and basically that sketch plan
That's
has
the only thing
changed.
I don't understand is the new sketch plan is coming in totally different.
That's why I asked if it was a modification of the old sketch plan or a new application.
Well, it's a modification, but it's like totally different, right?
I wouldn't say totally
Let's
different.
say if we decided it was totally different.
Well,
Then it's a new sketch plan.
that allocation business isn't us. That's somebody else. So
Or maybe other competitors might contest his allocation.
I suppose they could.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, that's probably not our
Why,
business.
I mean,
then.
how many
That would be the
extensions
select
did we do?
More than I can count right now.
Right, because we all thought the sketch plan was staying the same every time we extended it.
But that's not us. We're
And maybe it could be considered a revision to the sketch plan, or it could be considered a whole new sketch plan. The application procedure isn't different.
It's probably not our issue until the lawyers tell us that it is.
I'll just mention, we do have other things coming on afterwards, after that, the following meeting, so.
So is it just one application next meeting? Or more?
One application, kept it just to that one particular application, assuming that, this may end up being not much of something or a lot of something, but we, just simply due to the size of the, and history of the project, we thought it would be prudent to have it in the main hall upstairs and allow for a lot of time.
Any expert witnesses coming in, or?
Not that I know
I
of.
don't think it's going to
Probably
be
not the
anyways.
sketch.
So,
It's not Brett's style.
so
So that's the 4th, and then, so there's other things, and then do we expect that to continue to the 18th?
I haven't made any plans
We don't
on
know.
that.
All right,
I expect it to continue. I don't know if it'll be to the 18th.
to the next
And
meeting.
the other
yeah.
thing, just simply mention, is on July 2nd, which is 3 meetings from now,
I probably won't be here July 2nd.
planning out some, every year
Tuesday?
around the solstice, we plan a little outside trip.
Schlep.
Hmm?
The schlep.
Yeah. Thought, as a follow-up to some of the stormwater thing that we did, that might be a good idea to take a look at some stormwater systems.
Those have been pretty interesting, those last ones we've done.
Learn from our mistakes, huh?
Or other people's, whatever. Yeah.
So I'll be recusing and absent on the 4th, and on the 18th, I'll be absent.
Oh,
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's booked in.
okay.
So Brian, you have lots of opportunities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, the 4th, I think I will be here, the
Uh-oh.
4th. Hopefully the 18th, I'll be available.
Okay. And
So
just
you won't be
simply
on the 4th,
saying,
huh?
for anybody who misses a meeting and wants to partake in the next meeting that's available, just make sure you have a chance to review the VCAM.
Is Brett's application posted already or not yet?
There is a website that was set up for it, a link that was set up for it, and I just got some new information today.
Okay, so
that's
not
gonna be-
yet. Not-
It's, yeah, and actually, it was a bunch of different committees who said they really wanted to see what was actually submitted right away. I threw in a big note to say this is not gonna be the final, and made a bunch of comments, as I do with many of these applications. I have a chance to vet a lot of these applications, try to make them as good as they can be before they come here.
Yep.
And I've already gotten some responses on that, so I don't see any more I don't see any more comments coming from me as far as this application, so it'll be the staff report based on the information that we have now. But I think it's actually even on the town website if people want to, and of course you're free to take a look at that. But of course, in about a week or so, I will be sending out the typical notice and hopefully have a staff report and all that put together.
Okay. Sounds good.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah.
So moved.
So moved.
Second, Brian?
Yes.